Hello, writers. Come write with me. My name is Michaela Greenwood. I create worlds for mind adventures. Welcome to my channel, Write with Michaela. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell so you can go on this journey with me. Today is Friday, which is story time, or the day of our chapter exchange. If you're writing with me and wish to exchange chapters, then send your chapter with written permission to writewithmichaela@gmail.com. I will post the email address at the end of the video and in the description below. I am looking forward to reading your chapters. All chapters read on Fridays, whether they are mine or another writer's work, are copyright protected material, and no one may use any part in writing their own stories. This story is PG-13, so if you are under 13 years of age, you need parental guidance. The story is in its rough draft stage, just like the last two stories we heard. The title of the story is Elloni's Pride, and today we're reading chapter 17 out of book 1. If you would like to read along, then send to the email I stated earlier and request a PDF of the chapter. Make sure you are specific. And you could request writing prompts too, like on Tuesday we wrote about the down soldier. If you want that, I could do a PDF of that as well. No problem. So just send to the email and make the request. Now let's start Elloni's Pride, book 1, Breaking Point. This is chapter 17, Another Soldier Visit. Excuse me. Soflin woke up early and she slipped out of the cave to forage in the woods. Soon she found edible mushrooms and wild radishes. She gathered quite a bit, but not before Lydia and her dragon found her and joined her. Frances ate mouthfuls of leaves as they harvested. Then they went back to the cave to partake of the harvest after Soflin cast charms to cook the food for them. While they ate, Frances announced in thought to them, "I fly today. We soar high. I see pictures and liquor on my back." Soon after they ate, Soflin cast some charms to make pictures in the air to show Lydia what flying on a dragon looked like. She used her memory to show the linkers in the past, and Lydia remembered the dragons she had seen around her kingdom. Excuse me. We don't have did you call it a saddle? We don't have a saddle, so how do I cast a charm for it? Soflin smiled gently. Saddles work best if they're not charms, but second best is to know how they look, so you can replicate one. Replicate? Asked Lydia. Yes. Now, I'm not sure all the parts of a saddle, and I don't know what's necessary and not necessary, like... Soflin got up and moved to the picture. She pointed to a strap. You see how this strap holds a water sack? Well, if you don't have a water sack, you don't need that strap. But if you have a water sack and you want to bring it, then you need to replicate that strap. Soflin went back to sit beside Lydia. Replicate is a charm that requires a mental image as well as words. So you need to know what you're replicating. You need to know every detail. If you forget a detail, you won't replicate it. Then my water sack would fall to the ground, asked Lydia. Yes, and we don't want that, stated Soflin. I fly safe. You no need all that, thought Frances. Soflin chuckled. She will need the correct gear. Otherwise, she won't have anything to hold on to. Soflin gave Lydia the words to the charm, and then she had Lydia replicate the saddle she showed in the picture. They checked all the different parts as Soflin turned her picture to make sure everything was in place. Keechan was scurrying back to Libya, and she stopped some way back. She observed the dragons looking down on Libya, and it startled her. She thought, "Is everything okay?" Elloni looked in the direction she thought the mouse left in yesterday evening and thought, "We're letting her sleep. The tailors work her too hard." Baldian thought in. It took her a long time to get to sleep. She tossed and turned quite a bit. "Then this trip was good for her," thought Keechin. "When she wakes, I found a bush or two of berries." "That will be good," thought Elloni. "She has eaten the last of her meat, and she only ate one berry last night." Keechin crawled on Libya and found her pocket. It was a bit tight, since she was her normal size, but she fit okay. Elloni and Baldini decided to try and eat some grass, since no tree leaves were near, and the taste seemed fine to them, so they ate as they waited. King Damontade's soldiers went out to the training arena to gather some supplies for their assignments at hand. Some were going to their own village, and some were going to King Fate-Right's village. One commander called out, "Hey, where's our practice dummy? And where's our water barrel? What else is missing?" Several soldiers went to their normal stations or practice areas, and they called out other things that were missing from their areas. Finally, they came together and had a scribe make a list of everything. The lead commander said, "Let the king know that Browser took all these things when he left, because we had all these things the last time we practiced, and that's when Browser and his dragon appeared before us and flew away. Browser must have taken the things then." No one argued that Browser couldn't carry all those things, but they just thought that blaming Browser for the unexplainable fit in with all the other unexplainable things that Browser did while he was here. King Damontade was furious when he learned that what Browser had done, and he said that no one could kill Browser until he was standing there watching Browser's death. Then he ordered the smiths to remake all the things Browser had taken and ordered the soldiers to not come back until they had Browser in chains or their dragons needed potions. Just before the smiths left, the boy that gathered the potions from the witch and gave them to the dragons came running in and announced, "I can't wake the witch. She won't stir at all, so she isn't making potions and the hour is late." "Do you have potions enough for today?" asked King Damontade. Yes, said Cleffor the boy. "You had her making potions all day, every day. We have several years' supply." King Damontade motioned to the smiths and soldiers to carry out their orders, and he would have someone else check on the witch. When they reported back to him that the witch was dead, her dying in her sleep or by other means didn't cross King Damontade's mind. He just added it to the list of crimes against Browser, and he ordered some soldiers to go out and find him another witch. Browser woke up with a start and jumped to his feet. He looked around the woods as best he could, but he didn't see anything. So he started strapping on the armor he had over his long underwear. King Fate-Right's people had left everything behind, so he hadn't asked for clothes. Now he sighed, because he knew of some kingdoms a long way away, and it would take several hours' flight to get there, if they still existed, and he still hadn't found Bradley. Dronsnide had raised his head when Browser had jumped up, and he had looked around. "Hey, Dronsnide, do you think there might be other lingers in the other kingdoms? Do the other kingdoms still have their dragons?" "Those are good questions," thought Dronsnide. "I know some links opened up in the dungeon when you were thinking that your symbol was shining, and I remember some prophecy that more dragons would be able to communicate, but I don't remember all the details. And one detail is the distance that you just mentioned." "Wait a minute," exclaimed Browser as he paused in putting on his armor. Then he finished putting on the piece and he said, "You have connections with dragons?" "Well, I think so. But it is broken up. Like how I only get part of the conversation when you think with Bradley." Browser looked at him funny. So Dronsnide continued. "Like yesterday I don't like that word." "I mean, what exactly does that mean? I have no idea what word." "And this morning I fly today." And later I got, "You no need all that stuff." And still later I got, "We should let her sleep." Just how am I supposed to piece this conversation together? Browser shrugged, finished putting on all the armor and attaching the sword. "Well, remember all the pieces and we'll try to figure it out. Right now, we need to find Bradley, and then maybe after we get him to a safe place, we'll fly to a few places and see what's left." Just before they headed out, Brusser spotted a banana tree. He climbed on Dronsnide's back to see if he could cut a bunch down, and he was successful. He briefly wondered if Bradley had ever seen or heard of a banana. Then he continued on. He started thinking of the witch Timta that taught him to read and taught him charms. He didn't know if she was still alive or where she would be, but he more thought on the lessons he would have to teach Bradley. And while he didn't think of himself as a teacher, he knew if he had been a better student, then he wouldn't have stayed in prison so long, or maybe not even caught at all. "Bradley, where are you?" Bradley rolled over and sat up and looked around. He realized that he wasn't accustomed to posting watch, and he needed to learn to do that, at least until they got farther away from King Damantade. "Bradley, do you know how to read? Did the witch teach you that? What is the witch teaching you?" Bradley shook his head to himself and closed his eyes. He opened his eyes wide and then glanced over to the stack of bark chips that they had. "Well, I know the sounds of some letters, and I can put some letters together to form words, but I can't read a scroll like my father could when he was my age. I had nothing to practice on except the vegetables that my mother chopped when it was raining." "Just what exactly was King Damantade afraid you would read?" "Huh? I don't know," thought Bradley. "Everyone knows the prophecy." Never mind. Maybe he was afraid a prophet would tell us how to take King Damantade out. "Okay, so just write in the dirt and put letters together and sound things out. That's what my teacher told me. I thought it was utterly stupid, and I only wanted words that were real words. My teacher complied and gave me slips of paper with real words. But since I hadn't practiced, I couldn't read those real words easily, and I got frustrated. King Fatewright is teaching his people to read. He has some text that his stewards will copy, so I was thinking I should teach you. Of course, if you already know, then you could help me brush up." "Well, I'll tell you about my ma's and pa's disagreement. I would try to spell words by sounding them out, and my ma would correct the spelling. But my pa would say, 'I can read it. I understand it. That's good enough.' My pa felt that the communication aspect of reading was more important than spelling. My teacher's teacher was of the same mind as your pa. She would say, 'Just get him reading and worry about proper spelling later.' But my teacher would argue that some words sound the same and had different meanings and the spelling was important. And she felt that if I learned to read, then I wouldn't go back and learn spelling." I must admit that my teacher was right. I never went back to learn spelling. But I was talking with Servik from King Fatewright's kingdom, and he was saying something about words being very close in spelling and changing our charms. So we probably need spelling. What's Soflin? That's the witch's name, right? What's Soflin teaching you? Mostly just words to charms. She's not with me. Broman seems to know all the letters too, so he can help me remember the letters I've forgotten. And we're using a knife to put them on bark chips. Oh, awesome! Well, if there was prophecy about this time, it would have spoken about you, Bradley. I'm glad you're alive and King Damante didn't know to be afraid of you. I don't think I'm a threat to him, thought Bradley. Think about it, Bradley. My teacher never caused harm directly to King Damante, but she taught me and several others, and we fought him for a long time before he took his throne. And yes, he did eventually take the throne. But if we hadn't fought, he would have taken the throne much sooner, and he would have been more powerful. We, the other Linkers and I, we took out a lot of his soldiers. If he took the throne with the hundreds more soldiers... I get that, thought in Bradley. I'll think with Soflin and see if she has any suggestions for us as well. Good. I'm heading towards you. Hopefully I'll find you soon. Then I want to go see how the other kingdoms are doing. Other kingdoms? Yes, there are two, not too far by flight. And then there are kingdoms beyond King Damante's reach. At least there used to be. Then Browser's thoughts were out of Bradley's heads. Bradley shook his head to himself and thought, sometimes I feel that he cast the charm on me. Bradley roused the boys and Hagar, and then he got their stack of bark chips. As he picked them up, he thought of the shoes the boys needed. Hey, Broman, why don't you make a few more? While you draw a few in the dirt, I'll borrow your knife and start some shoes. Then while you do a few letters on our chips, I'll start sewing. I'll need the leather and needle out of Coulter's pack. Broman and Coulter didn't really say much, but Hagar thought, I watch, I learn. Hagar watched Bradley and Broman, so Coulter squatted down nearby and watched Broman draw letters in the dirt. A few times after Broman drew something, he would ask Bradley if it was a letter. Many times it was, but a few times Bradley would shake his head no and say that he didn't recognize it. Then he would always admit that he didn't really remember all of the letters until Broman drew them. Okay, writers, that is the end of today's chapter. I have to admit that the title, again, doesn't match the chapter, so I will have to change it. Usually, I try to think of a 1 or 2 word summary for the chapter, and I use that. But this is the second chapter we've come across in this book where the title didn't match. I think a better title might be Missing Equipment. Lydia is missing a saddle, King Damante is missing practice equipment, and the boys are still missing shoes. Leave a comment below on what you would name this chapter. And leave a comment below on if you would try to ride a dragon with just a charm. Note that most of the dragons in this story do not have the long whiskers that Elloni has. So the other dragons don't have something to hold on to. Because that's what Libya held on to the first time, was those long whiskers. So, leave that in the comments below on what would you ride a dragon with a charm. If you knew magic and you could cast a charm for a saddle, would you ride the dragon? Join me Tuesday for us to write part 10 of our cave story and maybe a little jargon. Join me Friday for chapter 18 of Elloni's Pride, book 1, Breaking Point. Visit my website, bymichaela.com, and read some character bios. If you read some, then leave a comment on which ones you've read. I hope to start adding more bios to the website as well. I wrote 2 yesterday, but usually what happens is I write a couple of bios, I'll leave them a couple of days, and then I go back and I read them, because I don't want to just show them up to the website because it's a lot more trouble to try to edit them once they get up there. So I like to read them after a couple days, and then I'll send them to my team and they can put them up there. So I did get a couple done, and I plan on doing at least 2 a week now. We'll see if I am successful with that. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe and hit the bell so we can continue to write together. And if you do those things, other people will have a higher chance of finding this video and this channel, and we can build this community of writers and have more fellowship. Because this is our community, so we don't have to be alone just writing by ourselves. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate your participation. If you know someone who would like this video, then please share it with them. This is Michaela with Write with Michaela. Bye for now.